So let's start to dig into the Microsoft Azure platform and understand what relational database offerings Microsoft Azure has for us available to use. And there's a lot of different options at Microsoft Azure. There's a lot of different products. It can get a little bit confusing. We're largely going to be talking about products that fall into two categories: platform as a service and infrastructure as a service. Now, in my next video, I'll go over those again so you can understand what the differences and the pros and cons of those two different types of cloud service offerings are. But suffice to say that they both offer some level of management in the cloud by Microsoft for our relational database services. So what are those relational database services? Well, we are going to talk about Azure SQL Database. That is their premier platform as a service SQL database. It runs a form of Microsoft SQL Server, so it relies on Transact-SQL, T-SQL, in order to interact with. And it's a fully managed platform as a service, meaning all of the underlying infrastructure and hardware, and even the server software itself is managed by Microsoft for us, so we can worry about exclusively focusing on just our database. We'll also talk about the Azure SQL MI, the managed instance version of SQL, which is similar to a platform as a service, but exposes a bit more of the server administration to us as the customers, as the users. And we'll look at the other Azure database offerings that are not actually Microsoft SQL, which includes Postgres and MySQL and something called MariaDB. We're going to talk a little bit about the infrastructure as a service deployment, Azure SQL on virtual machines, which is really just a plain virtual machine that you stand up and run yourself, similar to the way you do in your current data center, but you get to run and install the Azure SQL Server on it. And while we won't talk about running other databases on virtual machines, you can absolutely run any type of database software on those platforms, on those virtual machines that you want to run. The reason we talk about Azure SQL on VMs specifically is because Azure includes some support and documentation built right into the platform for that particular type of deployment. And then we'll finish up by talking about an analytics platform that relies on an underlying relational database called Azure Synapse Analytics, which is a really big topic. We're only just going to brush up against it. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.